Hey, what day is it? Oh, it's
Wednesday.
Tuesday. Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning. You got your coffee. I got my
Mhm.
coffee. Hey,
Yeah, it's my new coffee cup. Well, it's a couple
here's
months old.
here's to you. Yeah, mine's a to-go cup.
Uh,
Well, folks, based on the background that you see behind us, we're talking about cities.
yeah.
And we're talking about sometimes the part of the city that ain't so popular, but they're going through transformations, and they've given that a word, and everything's got to have a word, and it's called gentrification.
Or racism. Sorry.
Well,
What?
yeah,
Anyway,
that's why I say
that's
they gave it a more palatable,
yeah.
word to cover up. Let's get rid of the old and bring in the new.
You know what's funny is when I was not younger, but younger, and the word gentrification came out, I always thought it was genderfication.
Gentrification.
Yeah, like ER. And I was like, man, they just didn't even hide it. Like,
Right.
they
A
just
new
flat
word for coming out of the closet.
God. But anyway, yeah, gentrification is interesting because the idea of it on paper, like most things, makes sense. There's been tons of, especially that Chicago back there. There's tons of areas in Detroit, Royal Oak, that the area is just taking a dive, and it happens a lot. It's not,
Well,
it
every
just
major
happens.
city has an area that
Everyone.
that just starts to crumble.
Old people move out. There's maybe a business left. And so you look at that city and you go, you got a couple options here. You can sit there and just let it falter and crumble and maybe turn into the ghetto, or you can invest some money into it and start buying up these abandoned homes. Maybe start offering some of these people some money to move out so that you can put a new face on it and make it hipster and all that again. And I understand part of that because sometimes it works out really well. And sometimes those cities like incorporate some of those older buildings into the area. I mean, there's streets in Detroit ain't nobody living on. So if you come in and try to do that, cool. My biggest problem with it, and really it's happening here in Frisco. Nobody talks about it, and no, because they're all too busy looking at the shiny new. Look at this shiny new thing over here, and look at the PGA, and blah
Well,
blah
yeah,
blah.
the new 20-story apartment buildings that are going up.
Right, and hey, we're getting Universal, and look at what our mayor did. Pfft, whatever. Um, but oh my God, guys, breaking news. Tony Bennett just died.
Really?
Sorry, guys, I had to stop. Tony
Holy
Bennett,
cow.
96 years old, just passed away. Oh man.
Lady Gaga's going to be upset.
Man, Tony Bennett literally was the last of
Yeah,
that era.
yeah,
Man, RIP, man. That Tony Bennett's a legend. Anyway, sorry,
absolutely.
guys.
Yep.
Um, But you look at this area here, and there's several pockets of our Frisco area that are older, old homes, and they don't have the opportunity to fix them up. They're not bad homes. They're just old. Some people are doing the best they can. They're trying, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we look at it as the rail district in Frisco. It is that area where the original shops, and it's called Main Street. That's where the original businesses and everything were. Banks have been converted into businesses. A lot of the old Victorian style homes have been turned into boutiques and restaurants and everything. And that's part of that gentrification, is to take an older area and revitalize it a bit.
Which is good. The
That,
problem that lies is you have people that, number one, they can't afford to keep up with the
right.
neighbors. They can't afford to keep up with the taxes. They can't because everything just keeps going up and up and up. They're trying to make their home the best they can. You've got some people that have been here for 30, 40 years
Right.
when nobody cared about downtown
And the
Frisco.
mortgage is paid.
The mortgage is paid,
Yeah.
but they are being squeezed out around them. Houses are getting knocked down, put in businesses. Businesses are taking over old homes. You have little homes like I am squeezed between two businesses, and you just wonder when is the city going to come in and go, hey, or a realtor or a developer go, we'll give you X amount of money. Now, some people might be like, hey, that's great.
Yeah.
But some people don't want to leave and they're being squeezed.
Well, but from the city's point of view, they're the ones that gave the variance and all to make it switch from a residential
Sure.
to a residential / commercial property and
Sure.
all. And they fully understand that while they're still going to get property taxes on every property and all, if that business turns from an already paid off home occupied by a family to a business that's now going to generate tax revenue for the city, that's one of the reasons that they say, hey, we're all for turning those family homes into businesses because it's more money in our pocket.
They don't think about the people that have lived there for years
and are being
contributed it to this city that are now displaced. They could care less. And you see all these people on Instagram and TikTok going, ooh, new realty open, new this. New. Well, what about the family that had no choice, but now has to leave their 40-year-old home because Frisco wants some bougie boutique that 3 people are going to shop at?
And they won't. Those people will not relocate to another area here because they can't afford it. So they're going to relocate either out of city or out of state.
You're literally forcing people to leave. And I got to tell you, I have a massive problem with that. There's got to be and people are like, well, that's capitalism. That's the way it is. And I'm like, this is why cities end up losing their culture. And this is why cities end up losing their personality.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you that gentrification does work in some cases, and there's 2 major cities that I'm familiar with that did it. One was Indianapolis. Indianapolis's downtown area around the circle and everything for probably 20, 30 years, little by little, the shops were leaving. One, because the suburbs became more attractive. Sure. And there were more people to draw upon in the suburban areas. So the mama papa shops left the downtown area as they do all across America. And these vacant buildings just were deteriorating. And it was like, what was ever going to happen? It became a seedy part of town. Sure. You never wanted to go there at night. The bars even started closing up. And that's where, Indianapolis is the capital of Indiana, and the government offices are right there in the center of town. 5 o'clock hit, everybody disappeared because you didn't want to be downtown. Well, they went through like a 20-year transformation where they came in, and it was really part of the government that came in to try and revitalize and uplift these buildings and bring new offices. And there isn't as much retail, but there's a lot more offices in the downtown area. So that brought the commuters in to use the downtown areas. So restaurants started coming back and attractions started coming back. And the other one was Baltimore. Baltimore had a very, very deteriorating waterfront.
Baltimore still does. It's one of the most dangerous cities in the world.
But but let's go back about 30 or years or so. When it was bad, they went through a big revitalization program. It was great for about 20 years and all, and now it seems like it's reverting back to being a tough part of the city.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did it. They tried. But the problem with Baltimore, again, would be the corruption. And it trickles down, and I know it worked a little bit. Actually, there's some parts of the south side of Chicago that it worked, you know, and there's parts of Detroit that we wouldn't have today. Look, if you've got an empty lot and you've got empty, and I can't stress this enough for the people that aren't familiar with Detroit, if you've got empty streets, nobody's living on those streets, those houses, the crackheads don't even want those houses, then come in, do what you got to do. But when you got people that are struggling, and I'm not talking about like drug dealers and gangbangers, I'm talking about people, families that are trying to make it, trying to keep their little piece of the pie, and you come in and you squeeze them out, they're a part of this country, they're a part of this city, they're a part of this town, and you just don't care what happens to them. That's that corporate greed, and that's that political greed and the city greed and mayoral greed that I just can't sit with.
Yeah, yeah. The developers come in and say, okay, let's buy up that property for, pennies on the dollar and all, and then we will launch a multi-use area, with housing
Yeah.
and shops and businesses and apartments
Shops or whatever.
yeah,
Or hey, let me put in this new foo-foo coffee shop.
yeah,
Or you know what? Here's a yoga studio for all the moms out there that pretend they're gonna go to yoga. Like I don't know.
yeah.
I think part of that brings the city together though. Like I think part of these homes, these old homes, is what makes the downtown really kind of cool.
Lauren and I watch HGTV a lot, because there are several of the shows. And you mentioned Detroit. There are two gay guys in Detroit that have a show
Only two.
where they well, they have bought like every old decrepit vacant dilapidated home on a particular city block,
Sure.
and one by one they bought some of these homes for like $5,000
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
all. And I mean, there's holes in the roof and holes in the floor and everything, but they go in and they'll buy this house for $5,000 and they'll put about 40,000 into it, and then they'll turn around and sell it for about 60. And what they're doing is they are taking, demolished areas,
Mhm.
and one by one they're refurbishing these homes one at a time and selling
Absolutely.
them to the very people that either are living in that neighborhood or used to live in the neighborhood and want to come back. And all. And
I love that. That's a great
very,
idea.
very positive program. Yeah.
And I know Detroit because there's homes there that even now I could go buy and drop 10 grand, 15 grand and get a home. And the bones of those homes are great. Now you got to have the time, talent, patience, and money to fix it. But I'm all for that. Look, bring something where you're not really changing the vibe, because there's some beautiful buildings in these, and even parts of Dallas and Chicago and Detroit and Philly, and that they just need a little love. And to me, I know the government won't do it because there's no money in that. But to me, that's what we need to do. Forget this. I'm going to buy it out, put this yoga shop here, put this paint store here, whatever. Let's give some revitalization to the pulse of that city with the people.
Yeah. And that's why another part of that gentrification idea is that there are these yuppies and all that are coming in, and they are buying up some of these big older homes. I know the south side of Chicago is a good case where these are 2 or 3 story homes or walk-ups or something.
Big ones.
And they will buy them, and then they will come in and just gut them and pour some money in and create a really great residence, because they see it as an investment that they'll live in it for 5 or 10 years. When they start to raise a family, they'll move to the suburbs and they'll sell this at a profit.
And I get it. I mean, I get it. Unfortunately, what it does, though, is it leaves the imprint and it destroys the community. Now, some of these communities have already been destroyed, whether that be because of the economy or drugs or what have you. But sometimes it's just a cycle.
Rap.
Look, I mean, and I don't know. I'm not saying that the idea or everything, there isn't positive that can come from it. But the majority of the time, there is some evil Scrooge McDuck behind it that is trying to wipe the city. And my big thing is nobody cares about the people. So I'm it's just weird in a society that we're so quick to throw people away and not worry about what happens to them.
I think if it's those independent developers from that area that know that area, that want to make a difference in the footprint of their neighborhoods, I applaud them and all.
Me too.
And but unfortunately, most of the time it is out of town or out of state greed that comes in and sees it as a way to make a fast buck, because they're the ones that come in and while they will take down the old buildings that were there, they put up something that barely qualifies as builder grade.
Doesn't even exactly.
It's brand new and all, but it's just barely functional.
We have a developer we have a developer here in Frisco, and I'm not going to say their name, but they've bought and done a lot in the downtown area. There's been a couple of things that they've done that I'm like, dude, that's really cool. But I've started as I walk and I go for my jogs and I see some of their homes that they put in, and I'm like, this was a home that was actually really nice looking.
Right.
You've bought it, taken it down. Now you've put up this LA box and tried to modernize it. Matter of fact, we have a huge complex downtown Frisco right now that, quite frankly, is an eyesore, in my opinion. Do I go there and visit some of the stuff? Sure. Do I go there and play on the rooftop? Sure, with Luke. But if you look at it, it's got a couple stores, a really cool coffee shop, and a beauty salon, and that's it, and a bunch of empty buildings. And it's been sitting there for years, developing. And I'm like, this is what you got rid of all this stuff for? You got rid of that to put this eyesore in Frisco that doesn't even make sense?
And what used to be there was one of the greatest ice cream shops ever.
Absolutely.
That they
you can
took
get
down
rid of
on
the
that
car
corner.
wash that was there.
The
I
car
don't
wash
care
and
about
the
that.
ice cream shop.
But the ice cream shop, and instead, when you go on the roof, there's a mural of the old ice cream shop.
Talk about a slap in the face, huh?
Hey, remember that ice cream shop? They moved and then they went out of business because nobody wanted that. Dude, this was the old school ice cream shop.
Right. It was your old Tasty Freeze type.
They should have built
the old original
around
Dairy
it.
Queen. Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got this overpriced beauty salon, a t-shirt store that, okay, cool, whatever. A good coffee shop. I'm gonna give them some love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's it. You got a restaurant that says coming soon for the last 2 years.
Right.
I don't like that development company. They also have another building just on the other side, and it's big. I don't know what's going to be there. It's been sitting empty for the last year and a half, and they're like, new from so-and-so development. And I'm like, there's nothing in it. You're just making money. Yeah, I don't like them at all.
Yeah. 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 There's several sides to gentrification and all. And I mean, if it's done right with the people in the community in mind, great. Because honestly, gentrification has been going on for centuries and centuries.
Absolutely.
It goes back to the old Roman area.
No, absolutely.
You know, but if it's done right, but unfortunately we live in a time, and I won't mention a former political official's name, but that would go in and just build a big, you know, resort and everything that really doesn't serve a purpose other than a personal purpose. But
well, we have that going on here, so
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, but anyway, but you know, if you want to invest in a piece of property, at least turn around and do something positive for the community that you bought the property in. That makes sense to me.
Agreed.
All right. Well, maybe we'll go find an old property and we'll tear it down and we'll put up a glass house and just throw stones at it. All right. Catch you next week. Go out and make it a good one. Bye.